Hi there, Jessica Jensen, Associate Professor at North Dakota State University's Department of Emergency Management here. Hopefully you have been tracking with me and have already at this point taken a look at my short introductory video and at the first identity video where I articulated my understanding of emergency management as an emerging profession. You will also know, if you've been tracking, that I do not believe an emerging profession is all that emergency management is. In fact, I think it has two additional identities, and one of those I'm going to discuss right now. I fundamentally understand emergency management to be a distributed function as much as an emerging profession. Emergency management is not actually done by emergency management professionals wherever they work. And if you've been through the other videos thus far, and I would go and look at them if you haven't yet, you know I believe emergency management professionals can work in business, non-governmental settings, and government, and all different kinds of places. I think it's possible for emergency management professionals to work there, and wherever I look at them and what they do in all of these various settings, they don't actually do emergency management. The work of emergency management is distributed across different entities in our organizations and in our jurisdictions. Within organizational settings, the actual doing of emergency management with respect to preparedness, with respect to response, mitigation and recovery, is distributed across those in charge of facilities, those in human resources, those in public relations, sales and marketing, production and operations, legal, accounting, finance, information technology, the administrators of the organization, and the employees themselves. I mean, what is done in response is because they do or don't do stuff. How well it goes is because they did better or worse, not because of an emergency manager, but because of this distributed group. An emergency management professional has the opportunity to facilitate the framework in which they can achieve success, right? And give them the opportunity, but the responsibility, the actual doing, is distributed, and this is true in local government. There are so many different entities that have the responsibility to do something. I could go on, but as a taste, elected officials, nonprofits, utilities, engineers, planners, public works, first responders, finance, assessors, permitting, businesses, hospitals, and the citizens themselves each have responsibility in these functional areas for actually doing stuff that emergency management professionals don't do. It goes on, this pattern, at state and federal government. All kinds of different entities, their titles change state to state, the labels are titles, and certainly there's variation between state and federal government, but functionally we distribute stuff in our society. That's what we do. There are responsibility for managing certain aspects of what's important to us that a lot of different folks bear, and it just as at the local level, at the state and federal level, these different entities, regardless of title, have roles to play and the responsibility to do it, the actual subject expertise to do it, subject matter expertise, and to some extent, they're the only possible holders, really, of the resources, right? And I'm talking about transportation departments, ag departments, housing, natural resources departments, National Guard, or that military function, commerce and economic development, the law enforcement function, highway or state patrol, what have you, parks and rec. And yeah, FEMA DHS/EM offices are in there, but they are a small part, really, and primarily their role is to facilitate the work of those who actually do the doing, who carry out the tasks and activities. This phenomenon is true in preparedness, where emergency management professionals may be involved in designing exercises or setting up a planning process, right? Or helping their organization talk through how they're going to participate effectively in some aspect of response or recovery to hazard events or mitigation. But what those professionals are doing is facilitating the dialogue of those who will do the work. They are not the workhorses. Professionals aren't. They are the ones who facilitate the work of those who are. This is true in mitigation, where emergency management professionals don't have the authority to make policy that affects the wider organization or jurisdiction they serve. And this is true at every level, right? Local government emergency management, for instance, is not passing ordinances about setbacks and clusters and zoning. They're not dictating building codes, right? I mean, obviously, right? And keeping with this local government example, they're not out there building levees and dikes either. That's not, of course, right? It's like so obvious, but it's kind of not. This distributed function thing, this is emergency management too, because they're the ones who actually do the work. Same is true in response. All kinds of organizations become involved in response. Not all of them would ever be even potentially emergency management professionals in my view, but that's not to say that they're not doing the actual work of the emergency management endeavor. First responders are giving medical care, they're plucking people off rooftops, they're securing scenes, they're stabilizing roads and bridges, they're, providing technical expertise, and overseeing the building of sand dunes, or good Lord, sand dikes. They're doing all kinds of things to make sure that the work that needs to be done in response is getting done. Emergency management professionals are providing the subject matter expertise to inform policy decisions and the allotment of resources. And emergency management professionals are helping the different organizations that are doing the work of response do so in concert with one another. That's what they're doing. And we have a real opportunity for emergency management professionals to take a wider, broader role in recovery. But the work here is the same. Emergency management professionals in any setting, in a non-governmental setting, in a local jurisdictional setting, in a state level office, or anywhere else, if their organization or jurisdiction they serve is going through recovery, and there is a role for that organization or jurisdiction to play, then emergency management professionals have an opportunity to help inform their work. Emergency management is, folks, in my view, fundamentally a distributed function, as much as it is an emerging profession. There's some issues here, though. The entities in the distributed function each have their own priorities, ways of working, culture, and resources. And when they do become involved in the emergency management endeavor at any given stage, their work there is non-routine. They're not thinking about this stuff. They don't have experience thinking about this stuff or being actively engaged in it. And by they, I mean the wider organization, the wider jurisdiction, the wider state. They don't have it. They need someone to help them. Someone whose subject matter expertise is this stuff, is how things go best in response, recovery, mitigation, and what it means to be prepared and how that's achieved across an organization or a jurisdiction. And in my view, that someone should ideally be an emergency management professional. But to be called a professional in an ideal world, it would be great if emergency management professionals had a specialized theoretical body of knowledge and skills. Specifically, it would be fantastic if emergency management professionals, wherever they worked, understood the entities in the distributed function and how they become involved and what interests them and motivates them and engages them, what the functional area tasks are that needs to be done in all of these different areas by these entities in the distributed function. And it would be even better if emergency management professionals knew how or the extent to which the entities that have responsibility even become involved. And when they do, what makes them effective? What makes those tasks, housing recovery, coordination in response, the implementation of a structural mitigation project, If emergency management professionals knew that and were able to couple that with their knowledge of who becomes involved in these areas and what motivates them, they could be a powerful facilitating force in the success of their organizations and jurisdictions in these functional areas. And of course, they're going to need some skills too. I mean, it's not just about a specialized body of knowledge that I see opportunity. I see that skills are still very, very much relevant. But I also believe that the skills that are necessary to perform well depend on the actual job title, the actual position one would take. Not that all emergency management professionals have to have the same set of skills in the same areas, or even necessarily be involved day to day in the same tasks to be an emergency management professional. I think the core shared body of knowledge would inform people wherever they would end up in this broad emerging profession, as I understand it. And that facilitation skills and emphasis on that and understanding how to do that would be also critically important. The issue is, if you're even on board with that, and yeah, sure, okay, in the abstract we accept that it would be fantastic if everybody had the specialized body of knowledge you're referring to, Jessica, readily available to us. Yeah, great, we would love to soak it up. Well, yeah, okay, we do have a bit of a problem maybe, because just like the doing of emergency management is distributed across multiple entities in any organization or jurisdiction, so too is the study of this crap within higher ed. And I'm not saying crap because I think it's crap, I'm saying it because I'm excited. It is super duper frustrating, so I'm excited and frustrated. What a weird phenomenon. But in all seriousness, the study of hazard events and what can be done about them and why these things are happening, it is also distributed just like the tasks are. So political science and public admin, engineering, demography and economics, business admin, planning, you name it. And this, listing on your screen isn't nearly comprehensive. It's simply to show that all of these different academic disciplines are studying pieces and parts of this puzzle. And in each discipline, you have different scholars, like literally different human beings, and not all of them, who are interested in some aspects of this puzzle. And in different disciplines, these different scholars are asking different questions. I mean, different things fundamentally interest the political science scholar versus the psychology scholar. And they're using these very narrow and specialized theories and sometimes different methods one to the next to study the questions that interest them. They're producing this work in edited volumes all over the freaking place, tons and tons of grant reports, and all kinds of journals. I mean, tons and tons and tons of volumes of literature all over the place, all of it studied through different lenses, using different language, and dang it if they aren't making it super hard for us to find. That sounds like a really big challenge for us if we want to learn about this. If we desire to be a profession, we need a specialized body of knowledge. We got to identify what kind of knowledge is it that we need. And then if the knowledge we need is scattered all over the freaking place, so much so that it defies our ability to learn about this stuff because it's so hard to find, and when you read it, it's gobbledygook, and you're like, I just read that 40 pages for one sentence, please. That's the feeling you get from the literature sometimes. It just is not what we need it to be. We need holistic understandings of how this stuff works so that we can understand how it works and how the different pieces fit together. And then we need to be able to develop policy solutions at different levels, or within the emergency management professional framework, we need to know how things work, presents opportunities for us to engage our organizations, engage our jurisdictions, and make sure that they are successful in the work of emergency management. All right, folks, drum roll, please. The last video, the third identity of emergency management, the third thing I understand it to be, is an emerging academic discipline. And folks, in my mind, this is where some of the pieces come together. It's super important that you continue to this last video so